Hello, welcome back to I'm Okay Though, the best podcast ever created, said The Guardian. That's what they said, wasn't it?
They did actually say that.
The Guardian said we had the best podcast that's ever been created.
Created in the world.
Don't Google it. I think they might have. You won't find it.
You won't find it because it was quite a long time.
It was a while.
It was something like that, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
Pick of the week it was in The Guardian.
So
it was my mum that saw
very
that.
Very proud of that. Teddy, we've got an extra person in here. Teddy's causing havoc.
Teddy
This is Teddy.
This is Teddy. He's a rescue dog. He likes to hump mostly anything, inanimate objects and people. So watch this space.
If you're just listening, Teddy's a gorgeous... is he a staff?
He's a staff.
Gorgeous staff with some amazing sort of like
a tiger.
Tiger markings. And if you're watching, you can see Teddy. There he is, having a stretch.
Good lad.
How are you?
I was going to ask you the same thing. I'm in quite good shape, actually. I just came back from nearly a month in Ibiza.
Wow.
It sounds really glamorous.
It does.
There was quite a lot of work going on. We were delivering some mental health retreats.
Okay.
The first of their kind in Nobu Hotel.
Lovely.
Which was amazing. And then we were also doing some work at Pikes. We did some day retreats there, which were really good.
Okay. And when you say we, who are you?
I'm Jodie.
Yes.
I am a therapist and I'm the founder of Self Space.
Okay.
So when I say we, I mean Self Space.
So Self Space, we're out in Ibiza.
We were out in Ibiza, the first mental health brand to go over there.
That's amazing.
Very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. What an amazing place to be. We met some incredible people, Chance and I, who's the other founder of Self Space. And I think we're going to have a little home there,
That's
actually.
So cool.
And I really think there's an opportunity. So if you know the history of Pikes, Tony Pike was a music producer. And it was where Club Tropicana was filmed. Freddie Mercury has a bedroom there. It's got steeped in music history.
Amazing.
I think there's an opportunity to do something with the music industry there. And I'm hoping you'll be involved in that. And some type of
would love
maybe
to.
kind of burnout retreat or kind of I don't know, something for people in the music industry.
Love that. Yeah.
So incoming. But I'm okay. So I feel more revitalized than I did. I think just being in the sun is so good for your body, your soul, your mind. It really suits me, that Mediterranean kind of way of life.
Yeah.
So
me too.
Does it
definitely.
you?
I feel such what's it called? Sad.
Yeah.
Seasonal affective disorder.
Well done.
Yeah, I think everyone suffers from that. Do you? I think it's just a human condition of when the sun shines, I feel
vibrant.
I feel better about everything.
Yeah.
I feel good. I feel like I want to go outside.
Are you a sunbather? Because you're quite fair.
Yeah. See, this is a misconception. I actually tan really well.
You don't burn.
People always are like, "Oh, Factor 50, get your Factor 50 out." I mean, obviously, I burn if I don't wear something.
We should all be wearing Factor 50, to be fair.
We should. But from when I was a kid, I always went really brown, and then I think I abused that a little bit in my 20s.
Did you put olive oil on and
Not olive oil, but me and my friends would wear Hawaiian Tropic 1.
Oh my goodness.
Stuff like that.
Hawaiian Tropic, but it's still amazing. I don't use it anymore, but I do get it for my kids. There's something so trashy holiday about Hawaiian Tropic that I love it. And there's a shop that I go to Marbella often, and there's this one shop, and there's always some lads in there, random different lads asking for dry oil.
Really?
I never heard of dry oil, but apparently it's something that makes you tan. I mean, isn't oil not dry? That's all.
Yeah, they might be asking for what I used to use.
Was it keratin?
No, it was. I went through a phase of what's it called? It's basically an oil that you put on once, and you never have to reapply.
It's an oil with a factor in it.
Yeah. Factor 2. You can get no. You can get
Is it
factor,
P? Is it?
Yeah. 20.
P20.
P20.
Yeah.
So I would use P20, and it was. I probably for about 10 years was my go-to. Whack it on in the morning. You don't have to think about it for the rest of the day. And then I used to go really brown on it. And then 1 year, probably because I've been using bloody P20 oil for 10 years, 1 year I did the same routine, put the thing on, and I came up in horrendous heat rash.
Oh, no, it's awful when you start getting heat rash.
I've started getting heat rash.
Yeah, you need to be really careful. I'll tell you what lotion to use.
Oh, now I use Pisbury Allergy.
Okay.
And
we're not a sales team here, by the way.
We're also
not sponsored. We're also
holiday podcast.
We're also not dermatologists.
No. Yeah,
just ignore everything we've just
trial and error.
But I was just going to say something about. I really try not to judge. Like, as a therapist, you're not supposed to you're meant to be as neutral as possible.
Yeah.
But as humans, we do judge. This is our natural propensity, right? And I've noticed that I've got a bee in my bonnet, and I'm definitely going to isolate some audience here. But so when my kids go on holiday, even from when they were really small, I want them to be in the sun. I want them to get used to the sun. Obviously, they've got loads of like product on, and they've really flourished from that. So they don't really burn. They're not kind of afraid of the sun. Now, I am curious when children come out of hotel rooms, basically in full body suits, with caps on, with neck flaps, sunglasses, like zinc oil or something on their faces, and no part of their body is in the sun.
Yeah.
And I understand the fear around it, but there's also a part of me which is a bit like life. If we're not exposed to stuff, how do we build up any resilience or tolerance to it?
Yeah.
And also, vitamin D is so good for us and for our kind of well-being. Yeah. And I noticed that I take an immediate opinion about families that come out with their children. Like, why did you come to a sunny place? Like, I'm curious about that.
I like this phrase. Immediate opinion. It's basically like I'm judging
you, but I'll say immediate opinion.
My immediate opinion of this.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
To your kids?
No, not at all. My kids are kind of. I think maybe when they were like babies, we were very conscious.
Of course, and I'm not prescribing that we all fry our children.
Yeah.
But there's maybe something about that in the world which is. If we avoid everything that is harmful and that might be difficult for us, we're never going to be able to come into contact with it or kind of understand what our emotional response is. And the sun isn't really that, but there was something in it for me which was like, we just can't protect ourselves from absolutely everything, and maybe that's not what we need to be doing here.
And do you think that we do?
I think that we are defensive as creatures. Like, I think we create loads of different defenses against things.
Right.
And then the thing we're trying to defend against becomes so terrifying because we never learn how to deal with it or survive it. And I think, I mean, I notice it with my own kids and often clients as well. Like, I really want to protect them from having to deal with difficult things or rescue them from that that really hard emotion or experience. But actually the gain is, let's just live through it together and learn about it and come out the other side.
How often in the therapy room do you sort of hold back your want to sort of like
opinions or
like input personally? I don't know what the right term is, but is there a sort of like professional is there like a professional line that you have to toe? I mean, obviously there's a professional line you have to toe, but like do you often find yourself wanting to give them advice as Jodie and actually being like, well, actually the clinical advice I should be giving here is this? Is that a thing?
It's a good question, that. Ultimately, as clinicians, we shouldn't be giving advice, really, because the idea is to try to lead the client into finding the solution themselves, because otherwise it doesn't have much meaning for anyone. Right. It's almost like your parents. Like, if they tell you to do something, you're a bit like, nah. Until you realise, if I walk in the road, that's really dangerous myself.
Yeah.
So there are some occasions where I find repeating behaviours can become quite frustrating for me as a clinician.
Right.
So particularly with addictions, and I think we might have touched on this before, when I'm working with clients who are, moving into recovery, which is such an incredible privilege to be in the room with people. The part of me that wants to rescue them and the part of me that wants them to be well gets really frustrated around relapses or the narrative around bargaining, which is, well, I'm okay though. I'm fine in this space, and I notice I just want to say, please, can you not, please, because you're amazing, and I just don't want you're so much better than this.
And you can't say
not
that?
Really, no, it doesn't really help, isn't really useful. And there are times where I've definitely given opinions, and there are times when I go away from the therapy room and I take it to supervision, and I might need to come back and say, listen, last week when I said that, I want you to know that I shouldn't have said that, or that might not have been that helpful for you.
Tell me what taking it to supervision is.
So when you're a clinician, when you're a therapist, you need to be legally in supervision, which is, I think of them as like a kind of, my supervisors, ancient and amazing. And they are somebody who effectively is in the room with you, but they're not.
Right.
So all of your casework you take to your supervisor, and their job is to look at you as a clinician. What's she missing here? Is she too aligned with the client? Is she giving opinions too much? And their job is to basically call you out and say, hang on a minute, Jodie, you've missed this. Or, it's really easy in therapeutic work to become colluding with the client.
Yeah. Like a cheerleader.
Like a cheerleader, or you're involved in a dynamic which is happening also outside the room, repeating in the room, and you might not notice.
So does every therapist have a supervisor?
Every good therapist will have a supervisor.
Every good therapist.
Every good qualified therapist will have a supervisor.
Obviously, a lot of therapists like work freelance or whatever, and they work out of their homes, or they have an office or whatever. Would they have a supervisor?
They should do. So
is that something you'd want to ask?
100%. So if you're looking for a therapist, other than coming to us, obviously at Salespace, no, go to the BACP or go to any of the registered organisations which will give you a list of clinicians, and those are clinicians which are registered to that governing body. Right. And if you're registered to that body, you have to adhere to certain regulations, and that is being in supervision.
Right.
And I think it's a really, really important thing. We make, I don't think you can do our work without having somebody else look at the quality of the care you're giving.
That's cool. I didn't know that was like a part of it.
It's a part of it.
And every session you go
Not every session. So the amount of clients you see depends on how much supervision you have to have. So I have it every other week, but I have in the past had it twice a week.
Right.
Depending on what your caseload is and what clients you're working with.
Wow.
And they're amazing people. They become like a kind of, they're your champion, but they're also somebody that you can, we all make mistakes, and it's so important that as whatever role you're in your life, and we were talking about this before, like owning that is really powerful. And in therapy, I think some of the most transformative moments I've had is when I've said, I'm really sorry, I made a mistake there, and I wonder what you made of that.
To the client.
Yeah. And they might say, well, actually, it reminded me a lot of what my mum does.
Wow.
And then you're suddenly able to make a connection to, okay, great, there's some meat there that we can work with.
Yeah.
Or they might say, yeah, actually, I did notice that and I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then you might be like, well, why not?
Yeah.
And is that repeated often in your life? So those moments, I think, can really, really be transformative.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much going on, isn't there? Like that you just don't.
Yeah. Are you good at, because I know we were going to talk a little bit, weren't we, today, about like how we show up authentically in the world a bit, what the persona is and what our self is. And I guess that's an example of that, which is as clinicians, we're still people. Yeah. And as people, we make mistakes. And I wonder about what that's like for you. Like if you feel like you do show up often as you really are, or do you sometimes have to kind of mask what's going on for you?
I think I'm getting better at it. I'd like to be totally sort of like fully open and honest and transparent and be comfortable with that. But the truth is that I don't like upsetting people.
Yeah.
And a lot of my job is to make people feel comfortable enough to open up and write something really meaningful.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I have to do at the beginning of a relationship with a artist is I often have to, maybe I don't love their first stuff they're doing, but I see the potential. So it's like, I'm not going to be like, do you know
critical.
what?
That's not very good.
That song's pretty shit.
God,
but I think
imagine.
But I think, that's just not the way I'm going to do it. So I've kind of like learnt to be. Sorry, I'll pick up. I've kind of learnt to be sort of just like a bit more understanding of the process that an artist, they're pretty like needy and vulnerable people that need a lot of like love and encouragement to get something out of them. So I guess it kind of like couples with my personality of not wanting to upset people in life. But what happens with me is I go so long down the rabbit hole of not
saying what you need to
saying what I need to say, that it comes out somehow and actually causes more shit than it would have done
if you just owned it.
Yeah. So it's like this. I'll get a parking ticket, right? And I'll take the ticket and I'll not pay it and forget about it.
And then it goes up.
And it goes up. Then I'm like, oh, it's gone up. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to, maybe I'll contest it. And obviously I don't. And then and then I'll get another letter and it'll be
gone
like,
up even
it's gone
more.
up again. And then I'm like, oh, but if I'd have just paid it,
it would be done.
it wouldn't even be an issue.
That's such a great metaphor.
Do you think?
That's an amazing metaphor for what you're talking about.
What I do.
And that is, you've really kind of nailed something that is very common amongst us humans.
Yeah.
Which is we avoid the thing that is maybe a bit painful, maybe a bit difficult.
Yeah.
Are you crying, Teddy?
Teddy, do you do that too, Teddy?
Yeah, I know. And because we think somehow it's going to go away, or somehow we're not going to feel it anymore, or somehow we avoid it.
When I was younger, and basically when I didn't have when I wasn't earning great money, so sometimes I would like get a parking ticket and I wouldn't be able to pay it then, and then I'd no money was coming in,
so you'd wait.
So I'd wait. So I'd rather pay double because I'd have the money
than ask someone.
Yeah, or whatever, or deal with it, or maybe I did have the money, but it was always that sort of like, oh, I can't deal with this right now, but I reckon I'll be able to deal with it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So let me just circle back to it in a couple of weeks. By that time, obviously you're still in the same position, and it just gets worse and worse. And I think that's kind of how I do things, or I'm trying not to, but it's definitely like.
And what would you say? Because I think that's a very natural thing to do, and actually I think we need to try actively to avoid doing that, because I think there's a great cost to you. Like we're talking about the financial costs here, but I'm wondering about every single time you swallow yourself in a conflict, in a situation, even the small things, which is like, okay, that person was constantly late. That's fine. It's just 10 minutes. By the time it's the 10th time, you're like, I'm actually really pissed off now.
Yeah.
And now I can't hide it.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'd said in the first instance, listen, it actually makes me feel really as if my time's not valuable when you're late. Let's just both agree that we're going to try our best not to do that, let's say. What's the cost to you in not saying it when you need to say it? What does it do to the kind of your inner world, or how you feel?
How does it make me feel when I avoid it?
When you avoid it,
I feel like I've got away with something. I feel like it's gone. I don't have to deal with it.
So you feel like you've won.
Not won. It's not a victory, but it is like a space, and it's breathing, and it's like.
But does it not niggle somewhere deep down?
Probably.
Because those things, if we aren't dealing with it, right, it lives somewhere in the psyche. And that is where things like stress, anxiety, worry, different behaviors that might be coping strategies, drinking, all those things we've talked about before, everyday disorders start to come in because we need to find another way to shut out the feeling of, I really need to have that conversation.
I think it's with me, it comes out at nighttime and worry and like dreams and waking up really early in a panic.
Yeah.
And then
horrid.
Going back to sleep and then having that like when I wake up sometimes and it's all just like there.
Yeah.
Like it's all just like
Matter.
kind of like in cartoons when they fight and it's just a cloud of fists.
Yeah.
And legs and stuff.
It's aggro. It's
that's
internal.
what it feels like.
It's internal aggro. There's that lovely story, which I'll try and like really paraphrase really quickly now. And it's called The Big Bag of Worries. And it's about a little girl and she goes to school every day and there's an old lady that sits on the wall outside her house and watches her go. And she starts off her first term at school and she's just got a rucksack. And as the days and the weeks go on, the bag she takes to school gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that it's like bigger than her. But she doesn't look in it because she's too scared to look inside it. Right. And one day she's like heaving this thing out the door and the old lady's like, "What have you got in your bag?" And the girl's like, I don't know. And the lady's like, "Well, you can barely lift it, love. Why don't you come over here and let's have a look?" And the girl's like, "No, I can't look in there." And the lady's like, "Well, you're going to have to at some point." So she goes over and she gets the bag and she scaredly looks inside and they start pulling stuff out together and they work out that, that one, that thing, that worry, that whatever it is, doesn't even belong to her. It belongs to her mum. Yeah. And that thing's just nonsense. That's rubbish. And they sort it out. Yeah. And every time she takes it out, she feels a bit more relieved and a bit more sorted to the point that she doesn't have nothing, but she's got a bag that she can carry and everything's not quite so terrifying.
Yeah, I think that's
And whilst it's a children's book, it makes so much sense, right?
Yeah.
If we keep piling it in and leaving it in the dark, there's going to come a point where it's either going to it's going to slide out in a way that feels...
Yeah, well, that's what happens to me. It just comes around and bites me, like, every time. It's just not... It's not worth it.
Do you think it's because you feel that if you say it, there might be a risk that you might not be liked?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing you defend against, which is, what does it mean when I displease people or they're disappointed in me?
Yeah, I'll feel... Like, if I'm at odds with someone and we've had a thing and they're angry and I'm... Do you know what? I often don't hold space for myself to be angry.
Anger's... It can be a terrifying emotion.
Yeah. Because, like, if something's happened which equally has pissed both parties off, I'll often shoo away my anger and want to get them to like me again.
You'd rather dismiss your feelings in order to secure the attachment.
Yeah, because when I'm at odds with someone or someone's like pissed off with me or whatever, I can't concentrate. I can't function until they say like. Well, they don't have to say, but until they show signs that, like...
You're okay.
We're okay. Then, honestly, the feelings just vanish. And it's so weird because I'm pissed off too. But I'd rather just get that out and done.
You'd rather it was calmed. But I think there's something quite important in that, which is, like, we aren't often taught how to bear feelings. Like... that's the easy thing, right? Is get them to say, "Oh, we're cool," or "I love you," or "It's all fine." Okay, I can feel fine now.
Yeah.
The hard thing to do is to sit with the discomfort of what it means to not know.
Yeah.
And how do we sit and bear that? Because that's where you reap the best fruit, which is like, I know that what the conversation that we've had was the one that needed to be had, and they might be upset and they might not like it.
Yeah.
Can I bear that, the idea, and how do I soothe myself without needing to reach out to them for validation or acceptance?
That's me.
And it'd be a really important muscle for you to flex, actually, which is, can I tolerate this discomfort for a bit and find ways to soothe myself which don't look like needing them?
Yeah.
And I think it's a really important skill to learn, because in the world, we're not always going to be able to get that reassurance.
Yeah.
And nor should we need it. Our job is not to please others.
Yeah.
And so how, I think we're not taught as children really how to bear the discomfort, which is, okay, you're angry now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just be in that for a bit. Let's not try to abolish that feeling. Let's not try to.
I feel like it makes me feel like, even with like work stuff, that there's no resolution at the end. Like there's no like patching it up. Like say like I have a fallout with like a manager who manages an artist I like. Well, I'm in that thing. I'm like, oh, they're just never going to use me again because we.
Do you feel like kind of hopeless?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know what it is. Like, and every time I see other people like fuck up or do something shitty or whatever, and then they're back working with the people again, and I'm like, what?
But
I feel like that's never going to happen with me.
And I suspect they do end up working with you again.
Yeah. Every single time. And I do end up being friends with the person again.
Of course.
Or I do end up like resolving it.
And that's a kind of classic example of, so a really big watch out for kind of our emotions and experiences is when the feeling you have is disproportionate to the event.
Yeah.
So, for example, that is a really good example of that. Shall I say example a few more times?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Example. That you something happens, might just be like a small thing, but your feeling is like enormous in response to it.
Yeah.
Disproportionate. And we often have that about, people will say, God, this feels ridiculous, but I am obsessed with this thing, or that's happened.
Yeah.
Then we know that's an old wound. That's an old scab that's just built, the wound is building and building.
Yeah.
This is historic. This is old.
Wow.
And those are the things to really put light on. Don't let them go, which is rather than just go, okay, I'm ridiculous. That feeling's like, this is not kind of equal to what's happened. Really take note of those things, because that's like, okay, when has this happened to me before? What does it remind me of? Where did I learn this?
Yeah. Mine, I think, now you're talking, I'm just sort of getting to this as we're talking, but I must have something somewhere about not being picked.
Are you the first or the second child?
Second.
There wasn't, well, sometimes that can be impacting, right? Because you were not the first.
Yeah.
You weren't the first one picked. And even when we aren't picked.
Yeah.
You come into a space that's just not fully yours. You were never just the one.
Right.
And so there might be something in that. What do you associate it to, this idea of not being picked?
I'm trying to figure it out.
Were you the favourite between you and your sibling? It's your sister, isn't it?
My sister, yeah. Don't know if I was a favourite, but my mum definitely, she said recently that I was like her golden boy. And
you were so you're used to being picked, actually.
Yeah, maybe it's...
So you're used to being the golden boy.
Yeah.
So how do I deal with the feeling of not being that?
Yeah, maybe it's that.
This is what I'm used to. I don't know the other bit.
Yeah.
I'm not... This isn't...
Because I would get... I mean, maybe that's why in sports as well, like... Not being picked in sports when you're a kid is So harsh.
Oh my gosh. But that reminds me, and I was thinking about this the other day, because loads of runners on a marathon or something, when was it in Spain or somewhere, ran past me, and I was all caught up in it. And it brought me back this memory of when I used to do cross country at school, and I was quite fast, but not the fastest. And I used to hide behind a bush because I couldn't run through all those. There's a few people, like just maybe like 10 parents watching. I couldn't bear to run through them and not be the winner. But I also didn't want to be the winner either. I just didn't want it to be seen. I didn't want it to happen. So I'd wait round the side until everyone had gone. And then the PE teacher would be like, "Where have you been?" I'd be like, "Just being slow." But there was something about that idea of like,
do you think you could have won the race? Do you think if you pushed yourself?
Maybe, but I also couldn't have bared that either.
Yeah.
I can't handle, I like being really good, but I like to be quietly good at things.
What are you like when people like randomly buy you like a really nice gift?
So now, that's such a nice, I was talking about this with someone else the other day. Because there's somebody I know who in her adult life, on her birthday, she puts a chair in the middle of the room and she asks everyone to stand round her, and she opens her presents and everyone's like to clap and cheer. And
How old is she?
Like now, like 45. I used to be like, oh my God, I can't.
Yeah.
The idea of that mortifies me. At first I was like, I can't believe what's happening here.
Wait. How old was she when she'd do it?
Well, maybe like all this time. Like this is what happens now.
What?
But actually, like, and I don't know about you, but like even when people used to bring me a birthday cake and everyone's singing, and I don't want people really to look at me, and I don't really want to be the centre of attention.
I'm more like that as I get older.
What you don't like it?
Yeah.
But now when I think about that, and that people around love and cheering, and why not?
Yeah.
Why not take our space? Like, why not have everyone watch you open your presents? And why not feel like you so deserve that?
Yeah.
What are you like? Do you feel overwhelmed when people?
I wanted to give it back.
Do you give the present back to them?
Back. I say I can't. Like,
I'm not worthy of that.
Even though, so a perfect example recently was like, I have a friend called. Well, I won't say his name. Well, I have a friend, and I love them. They're amazing, and they got married recently.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was such a kind of like low, there's weddings that's low key, just friends, like no fuss, like no first dance, just like get a load of people together. And they were like, can you, like, we don't really know, but would you like to DJ? And I was just like, what? I was like, oh my God, of course I'll DJ. Like, I love DJing. I love them. I knew a few people there, so it was like, yeah,
great.
Of course I'll DJ.
Yeah.
So I like bought my decks down, set up and everything, and like DJ'd, and we all had a great time. And like they were like, well, how much do you charge to DJ? And I was like, don't be dumb. Like, no, I'd love to just do it. Like,
sweet.
And sometimes it's nice to, if you're a photographer, it's nice to like lend your skills to a wedding. A DJ, you lend your skills to a wedding.
Yeah.
So I DJ'd and we all had a great time or whatever. And then I got a message a couple of days later, and he said, oh, when are you home? We have a little like present for you to say thank you for DJing. And even then I was like,
oh, don't be silly.
Honestly, that's unnecessary. Like, that's ridiculous. I had a great time. Don't worry about it. They were like, oh no, well, we've already got it. And like, when are you home? We'll drop it round. And I was like, oh, well, look, come tomorrow or something, Anyway, they bought me a Hofner violin bass, right?
Wow.
Which is a bass guitar.
Wow.
And it's so amazing on so many levels, because like, so my friend is also a producer. He's been to my studio. He knew I don't own a bass. I don't have a bass.
Okay.
I don't have a bass guitar, so he knew that for starters. He knew that Hofner violin basses was my dream bass.
How did he know that?
Because there was one. We used to share a studio, and there was one at the studio.
Wow.
And also, it's Paul McCartney's signature bass.
Wow.
So like, obviously, we always talk about the Beatles, and he knows I love the Beatles. And it's the bass it's my dream bass. Like, it's my dream guitar.
Wow.
And they brought it in, and I was just like, I can't accept this. It's so disproportionate to like the service I did that this present.
You wanted to give it back.
Yeah. And I said, I don't think I can accept this.
Except you also probably really wanted it as well.
Alongside looking at my dream bass guitar, like, what? And I said, look, and then they were like, no, don't be silly, obviously.
Because there's joy in giving, right? So they'd obviously thought about it.
And they wanted it, and they wanted to give it. And I was like, I said, look, tomorrow morning, this might be on your doorstep. This might be back on your doorstep. They were like, don't you dare, and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm very like...
And I wonder do you think that's a sweet story? I'm glad you accepted that. But do you think there's like something about how do we understand our worth, and how do we accept our value, and those things? I think we're, as people, we're all striving for meaning. So what do we mean to ourselves? What do we mean to others? How do we understand that we mean something to them?
Yeah.
And there's so much meaning in the thing that you just said. It's not just an expensive, snazzy present.
No.
It really means something. My ex-husband's an incredible gift giver. And he would always, like, I remember one Valentine's, I was on the bus and we drove past this like vintage furniture shop. And I was looking out the window and I was like, oh gosh, there was like this old sideboard thing. And that's so nice. And then just carried on, and he'd remembered, and he'd gone and got it, and he'd restored it, and he'd given it to me.
So
it's so, but it wasn't, I think it was like 20 quid or whatever, but it was the fact that it mattered to me.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we're confronted with meaning, like that, how much you matter, it can be completely overwhelming, particularly if we're not used to it as children.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that we come from deprivation in that area, but it might not. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I don't think anyone really got me, as in really got my... Everyone loved me, and I got... I mean, maybe not everyone, but everyone loved me. I felt loved, and I was always, treated.
Yeah.
But there was never anything that I was like, that speaks to my soul.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. Like, I get that person really gets me, whether it's a book or a poem or...
Yeah.
And there's something about that when somebody goes, I saw this bit of writing or this song and I thought you'd like it. Yeah. And you're like, okay, feel really seen now.
Yeah.
And that can be really overwhelming to be held in that light. Definitely. If you're not used to it.
Also, we weren't treated. We didn't get treated.
You weren't spoiled.
No.
So it's not used to... You're not used to it.
No. We get my dad will send me like a YouTube clip and be like, I think you should check this out, and it would be this song that's really amazing. So like, I do feel seen by my parents, but me and my sister were never like... It was unheard of to be spoiled.
Do you spoil your kids now?
Yeah. Not like grossly. They get grossly spoiled by their grandparents.
That's what grandparents are for,
on
to be
both
fair.
sides. Yeah. But no, I tried not to. But then I'm also like, I want them to have
what they want.
Enjoy, like, basically, like, there's this kind of trend of, I mean, I doubt it's a trend, but maybe it's just I'm a parent now, of these like fairs popping up in parks.
Oh, and they're so expensive, aren't they?
They're so
like 200 quid and you've...
Expensive.
Yeah.
So this is the perfect example of like, my kids don't know that it's expensive.
No.
They have no like...
They just want to go to the fair.
They just want to have the best time, and like taking them to the fair, they love it.
Yeah, of course.
And so my nephew was in town and we went to this fair, and it was like grossly expensive, and we probably like burnt through like more money than I'd like to say, like in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But what I tried to do I was on the way to the fair, I was like, okay guys, when we get to the fair, you get 3 things, okay? It can be 3 rides, it could be a game and 2 rides, or whatever it is, you get 3 goes. So
you've got to choose.
Yeah. So like we'll go around the whole fair and look at everything that's on offer. And
that's a good idea.
Right? And we get 3.
Yeah.
Like, and I said to my sister, I said, it doesn't matter how much it costs. they get three of them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like because I didn't want to be like, oh, you've done the bouncy castle, you've done the Thomas train, but you can't do the trampoline bungee because that's too much. You know what I mean? But,
yeah.
So if I say you get three things anyway, my son got it. Yeah, he was like, okay, I've got three. I need to work this out.
And he did.
But my nephew was like, oh, let's do hook a duck. Yeah. Which is where you get a pole with a hook on the end. You hook a stupid plastic duck out of a bit of water, and then the duck has a number. And
you're probably never going to win.
No, you win every time, but you win like a plastic
ball or
bow and arrow or like a stupid teddy that's like falling apart, right? So he was like, I want to do hook a duck, and my son was like, oh, I want to do hook a duck. I was like, okay, cool. But just letting you know, that's one of your goes. Like, look at this whole fair. You sure you want to do hook a duck? They were like, yeah, I want to do hook a duck. Okay. They did the hook a duck. They both won a prize. My son won a ball on the end of a string, and my nephew won a little teddy. And then I was like, right, guys, what next? And my nephew went, I want to do hook a duck. I was like, no, dude.
Why don't you do something else?
We've just got it. You can't do hook. Like, he's like, no, I want to do hook a duck. And my son was looking at him like, no, dude, that's a bad move. Like, but it was funny because he didn't really
he didn't understand.
He didn't understand, but also then it's like, I think to myself, well, if he wants to do 3 hook a ducks, and
then that's his choice.
Then that's his choice. And like, that's me spoiling him, because I'm paying for it.
But maybe sort of to draw us just a little bit back to what we're kind of talking about, which is around this idea of ourself and our persona, what we present in the world, how we feel, and how we get seen. Like, what's the meaning? You okay, Daddy? I lie down. What the meaning is in it. I think we're talking around that idea, which is, I'm not sure how hook a duck fits in, but I like the story. But it's something about how, if we don't show up authentically, we can't guarantee that we're going to be seen. And if we aren't seen, we don't find meaning. And if we don't find meaning, we shrivel up. That's when someone can't buy you a present that you really like because you didn't show yourself. It's where someone can't say, listen, I so know that you love the bounce, the scary ghost train because you love scary things and or whatever it is. But on a deeper level, if you don't show yourself, if you don't face the difficult conversations, if you don't arrive authentically, you are going to feel lonely. And you're going to feel as if you are not seen, you can't find meaning. And I think the way that we combat that is by trying our best to show ourselves as truthfully as we can.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure where we've been in this pod, but we've been a kind of around that. And I think it's
a loose theme.
It's a loose theme. But really, I think that's an encouragement to us all is to try to bring our truth, however difficult it is, in an environment.
Wow. I think that's a lovely place to put a pin in it.
I agree. I'm going to do hook a duck next time I go. And I want to... Can you still win fish?
No.
Oh,
no.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh, my kids won fish.
It's not the 30s.
My kids won fish. So 14 years ago, we ended up coming home with one of them tanks with the coloured rim round the top and Sid and Nancy. Two fish. Sid and Nancy. That has brought back that memory.
Wow,
and I hope they still don't do fish at fairs. They probably
not this fair.
Not this fair.
Not this fair I went to.
Just in Rolexes and...
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Choice. Thank you.
Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you too. And I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
And bye, Teddy. Teddy, say bye to everyone.
Well, no. He's just like sniffing in disgust.
He looked at me and went, shut up.
Not having it.